What's up, guys? Welcome to another awesome Blender tutorial with the movie show here on Active TV and Rumble. Of course, we're on Rumble. Yeah. So today we're gonna have a really cool, awesome tutorial. Obviously, we've been looking at modeling. We've also been looking at all sorts of other stuff between, like UV texturing. Just minor things like that. And the last tutorial we looked at a wind tutorial, and we literally made a flag wave, right? So that and I think that was touching more on cloth simulation and as well as just doing something simple with wind. But today we're going to be doing something more with wind, and I saw a very cool simple tutorial online from a guy, a YouTube channel called Lazy Tutorials. It was very cool. The guy did quite a simple tutorial like this with blown up papers. What I've actually done here is I've got a force, right? If you right click, add force field, you can add a wind. I added a force and I added some turbulence, right? And then what I did was then I had these pieces of paper. But wait, first before we get there, I've got the force and I've got it keyframed here. That's why you'll see in the beginning the soft body sort of kicks in with the turbulence. Alright, if I could turn the turbulence off, okay, basically you'll just get something like that. But I think my wind is also up as well. No, it's not. Alright, so what happens is the soft body kicks in, and then at a certain time the wind and my turbulence kicks in. This is actually it blowing all the papers up, and then you can see all my papers, including this cool little paper sack over here, floats down to the ground. Alright, and so that's basically, and you can see I've textured it as well, the newspaper net. So that's basically what we're going to do. So let's kick right into that. Okay, so I'm not going to redo these simulations, but I'm going to take you through the settings. But what I do want to quickly take you through is just in terms of how I did the newspaper, adding in all the different forces here, and basically what they do. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you, I'm going to explain to you in terms of the what's called the soft body physics over here, soft body, what all these different settings do over here, and even in terms of the fact that you can actually bake these settings so that, like this, my settings are baked in. It doesn't have to re-simulate it. It's a lot more easier on my system. Yeah, on your system. And so yes, right, cool. So let's kick right into that. So file, new, general Blender file. Okay, don't have to save that. Just to take note that, let me quickly go find this. My goodness, please don't look at all my personal files. Yes, there it is. Alright, so to take note that you're going to need a newspaper texture file. This was something that I got. I literally just googled newspapers. That's all. Alright, so yes, let's begin a new thing. I'm going to delete the default cube. I'm going to add in a plane. And now what I want to do is I want to divide this plane into sections, but it needs to be bigger. So let's S for scale up. Let's make it a little bit longer. So I'm going to S for scale and X in the X-axis. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into edit mode by pressing Tab. I'm going to press Control or Command R, and I'm going to put a split right there. Then what I'm going to do is in edge selection mode, I'm going to press A for all the edges. I'm going to right click, I'm going to say subdivide. Right click, subdivide again, and right click, let's self divide one more time. Then I'm going to go into face selection mode by pressing 3 on my keyboard, or else just pressing this button over here. And I'm going to try and basically, okay, here's another selection mode for you guys. So I can press C on my keyboard, turns into the circle. And then I can literally, so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3. Alright, we'll leave it at that, and then I guess I'm just going to pull out all these guys. Press escape, just to go out of the circle selection mode. I'm going to press X, and I'm going to delete the faces. I'm left with these guys over here. Now this is the foundation of what I'm going to do today. Now, okay, going back into edit mode, it's important that, well, literally I kept my newspapers, all on one single layer like this. So again, go back into, okay, well, let's say face selection mode, press A to select all. I am going to now shift D for duplicate, and I'm going to press S for scale. Great stuff, there it is. Alright, I'm just going to move it slightly up in the x-axis. Alright, and I'm going to move this guy right over here. Shift D and Shift Z. So Shift D to duplicate those guys already, which I had selected, and Shift Z because I'm moving it around in the I'm excluding the Z axis. All right, I have spoken about that before. I'm going to do it one more time. I think I'm actually supposed to be making these like random shapes and stuff. Okay, so duplicate one more time, maybe bring it about over here. The idea is just to have sort of random-ish pieces of paper, right? So you're sitting with these guys over here, these layers. Okie dokie. Now what we're going to do, and we have spoken about UV unwrapping before. So if you don't know how to UV unwrap, you need to go check out my tutorial on that one. I explain how I go down to exactly how I get that done. So going to UV unwrapping, I'm going to select all these guys. I think I'm probably going to need to just shortcut select this. I don't think it's done it, no, because I need to hit Alt Z, go into transparency mode, and Bob is your uncle. Alright, very cool. And so there's my UV texture. This is going to be your image. I'm going to scale it down a bit. No, I'm actually going to scale it up. Right, so let's do this. Let's give it a texture first. I'm going to go into my shading, new texture. I'm going to call it newspapers. I am going to Shift A to add in a texture, an image texture. I'm going to attach the image texture to the base texture. Then I am going to go and fetch that. I'm going to go fetch that newspaper texture that I downloaded. As I go through all my personal files, I named it wind. There you go. Going to attach it. It's going to take a while. It's going to show up. There you go. All right. Now all I want to do is, so the bigger newspapers are working out pretty well. Let's go back to UV texturing, and what I want to do is just, okay, here we go. So press Z, go to material preview so you can check out what your UV texturing is doing. Now remember previously I have selected them. I've got to match them up because ideally the idea is that the bigger pieces are bigger pieces of newspaper and the smaller pieces are bits and pieces of newspaper. So you kind of need to, okay. All right then. All right, why are we not scaling up? Let's try that again. Alright, so you can actually see over here, I'm doing that. So what it looks like to me is pressing it wants to play the hard way. So the other thing you can do is just, let's see, what is this over here? What are these? What if I want to select these guys over here? So I'm going to select, okay. Alright, I guess let's just do this. Can't remember how I did this though. Alright, circle, select these guys. In fact, you know that there's an easier way to do this. Maybe this is a good idea. I'm going to select one block from there, one block from there, one block from there, one block from there, one from each square. And the reason being is because I'm going to show you how to say select, and then I'm going to select by by connected. Right. And today is the day that, there you go, select linked. Then I can scale down to get those pieces big, fabulous. Select these guys over here. Again, select linked. Okay. make sure that you don't touch anything else underneath that. Right, select, linked, scale down. So all I'm doing is I'm just getting, yes, the newspaper pieces just a bit more bigger on the smaller pieces, so it looks like they are literally pieces of a bigger newspaper. Okay, I think you get the idea. Go out of edit mode, there you go. So now those are my newspapers. Right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a plane. I've gone out of edit mode. Make sure you're outside of edit mode so that we've got a separate image here. Right, this is your plane that your newspapers are going to collide with. So note over there, newspapers, ground. It's important to name because then that way you you can find what you're looking for. Right, the next thing I'm going to do, now I'm going to go out of the image preview mode because now we're going to start kicking up those physics. I think the most important thing to do is just to get these, so G for grab, in Z, just get them above the ground there, fantastic, there they go, just so that they're a bit off the ground. And now what you basically do, which, okay, I'm just busy saving this, can I save this? You don't mind me saving this, right? Wind tutorial, oh no, this is not wind, this is soft bodies, like warm bodies, but yeah, soft bodies tutorial. Okay, fabulous. It's important that you say, because if something happens to my machine right now, especially because I'm screen recording and I'm doing this Blender file at the same time, but I've got a Mac, so don't worry, it's an i7, it's an old Mac, but anyway, late 2013 MacBook Pro. Okay, 15 inch, yes, got the two fans, etc. for all the Mac. Okay, anyway, so moving right along. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to make these newspapers. No, first let's do the ground first. Let's go over to the physics tab, and I'm going to make this a collision object. The reason why you want to do that is because you want the newspapers to collide with this. Okay, you don't want to fall through the ground. That doesn't make sense. Then I'm going to set my newspapers, and I'm going to make it now remember last time we did the cloth. This time I'm doing the soft body. So I'm going to make them a soft body. And now it is very important that you uncheck gold. Gold basically is if you want your soft body to follow a certain pattern or something like that, then you can attach it to that. Pretty cool. You want to make self-collusion, because if the newspapers fall on top of each other, you don't want the newspapers going through each other. Why? Because newspapers just don't do that. Now we're going to get into these settings over here, but just to have a bit of a milestone reward. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to Shift A, and I'm going to add in a wind. Alright, we've dealt with the wind before. Okay, and the minute I press spacebar, you're going to see some action here. So first of all, the newspapers are falling down to the ground. Alright, so if I strengthen here my wind collision, there you go. You can see how the newspapers are actually reacting to it. Okay, so I'm going to put it about 2. You'll see with the wind, alright, I can even stop it. Let me go to my normal layout so that you can see my timeline here. But basically, you can see that, okay, so I'm pulling my timeline right to the beginning. By the way, you can press this button over here. It's a shortcut. It resets it. Okay, and then what's going to happen is as soon as I press start, the wind simulation is at the right strength, just that the newspapers are literally just hovering. Watch this. If I rotate it, in other words, if I change the angle, it's going to start pushing the papers as well. Alright, I'm going to make this 2.5, the wind. So there you go, and you can see because I have, there's the wind. Because I've angled it slightly that way, it's pushing the papers. Right, now to get that more paper feel, what this guy did, I think his name is Ian, and I can't exactly remember, it starts with an H, Hilbert or something like that. What he did was then, and he's very brilliant, please go check out his channel. The guy, like with UV texturing and that, he's brilliant. He is very brilliant, very fast too, and he talks very fast as well. So I'm going to add in a turbulence, and what this is going to do is this is going to give my paper that paper feel. Alright, what's also important over here is just so that you can get a bit more of that, I'm going to go under edges, and I'm going to change my blending to 1. We're going to get into that just now. Now as soon as I press play, you'll actually see, okay, let's more wind, and let me go back into my turbulence. I'm going to push this guy up to 5. You're going to start seeing the papers now. Let's go right to the beginning. Okay, you can see how the papers are beginning to sort of wrinkle around. We go into the material preview. So yeah, you can see my papers are starting to react. Okay, I think I've built on a much bigger scale. So I'm going to push my turbulence up to 10. I'll start from the beginning. And yeah, there's your paper busy floating. Now I built a yeah, you can see what the paper is basically doing right over there. Alright, so there you go. And then the other thing I did was I added in a force, and what the force does is it's literally a central burst of force from the center point here. I'm going to push it up to 5. You'll see the minute I click this thing off, it's going to react. There you go. You can see how the force is now busy blowing the pieces of paper away. But our problem here is that the difference between what I did and this is that, let me go open up this project, is that you can see I had almost like a burst of energy. Okay, I could have kicked it off right away. So you'll see there's my force over there. Alright. Let's say I decide to change it, and I just want it to like literally burst and finish, because it's almost got this like, hang on, there you go. It's actually the wind that seems to push it up. So what I did is I keyframed my wind and my force so that it's a burst and then it stops. That's what gives the paper that time just to sort of fall down. If I had the wind constantly going, it was just going to keep blowing the papers out. Alright, so very quickly, let's go through all of these settings over here, alright, that I've got. So first, to kick off with, so on the force, right, you've literally just got the strength over here. If you want to know how to keyframe this guy over here, you're literally going to use I. Okay, so let me just delete these keyframes, and I'm going to show you. So right now in the beginning it's at 0, unless you want to kick it off straight away. Alright, can I just quickly see what I had it at? Maximum 50. Alright, so I did a force of 50. So if I wanted to, I could change this. I could press I, that keyframes it, and then maybe like 2 keyframes ahead, and I'm going to click keyframe, go on ahead, change it back to 0, press I again. So you press I to lock it. Alright, if I were to just change it without pressing I, it's not going to save it. Alright, so save it, and then with my mouse over here, I press I. Okay, and that's my keyframe. You can see it's created keyframes there. Alright, very cool. So I did that with the turbulence. I just kept that 5, the wind, I keyframe over there. You can see that's basically what's going on over here. Okay, if I wanted to, I can delete the keyframe. I can just click that to remove the keyframe. Alright, let's say I decide just to oh, you know what, it's looking, okay, it's cachy, don't worry about that. Anyway, so yeah, all right, so basically, let's go through the settings quickly, right? So the biggest thing that I changed here was, okay, so the wind you've seen I've keyframed it, was the soft bodies. The soft body physics bodies. Yeah, soft bodies, my goodness. Soggy bodies. Ugh. Okay, so first of all, there's a lot of complication over here. I found a really good tutorial on YouTube as well. The guy went through a lot of this stuff, but I'm going to explain to you very quickly what I did. So first of all, you got the under object, you've got friction and you've got mass. Now, friction is basically how much friction the object has in the air. The more friction, the slower it's going to move through the air. Now you might say to yourself, but I want my object to fall slower, so I'm going to pick the friction up. The problem is that when you pick the friction up, it affects your wind as well. It also moves slower, so you've got to sort of pick the right point. The next is your mass. That's obviously how heavy it is. The more mass, the same thing, it affects how much more lift you need to give it and how quickly it drops. Alright, so pretty quick, pretty simple. Simulation, I didn't play with anything here. Cache I played with. Like I said, you can bake, once you're happy with your settings, you can bake it in. The next thing, I unticked goal. Goal is also pretty cool. Maybe, if you find the right thing to do with that, with goal, if you want maybe like a pillow that you've added a soft body to and it's busy following a specific path, that's where you use goal, because it'll apply the physics of the body to the pillow. So, under edges, and this is where we're going to change a lot of our stuff. Now, there is pull, and what basically pull is how much the edges of your object are allowed to stretch. So the higher the value, the more you'll see that they're going to stretch. They're going to become a bit more bouncy. I think this is more specific. You'll see, like this paper, you can see I had it actually at a very low level because otherwise you can see how this paper just sort of slightly wiggles around. So there's not actually much stretching within the paper. Paper doesn't stretch, all right? It tears. I don't know if there's some type of paper that does stretch. I don't know paper to stretch. I know that it tears. All right, it's quite strong. If you pull on it, it will tear eventually. Then you get this object. Okay, so you can see I put mine at 0.8. Then push is basically how much your body resists becoming cramped together. All right. If you put it on low, it's more cloth-like, because obviously cloth by nature just sort of flabs outwards. All right, I don't find cloth, just crumbling itself up. I think you would use something like this, especially if you've got like a piece of jelly. So when it drops, between your pull and push, with jelly, the jelly is going to stretch quite a bit, and the bending, in other words, the body is going to cramp itself quite a lot together, but then obviously it's going to decompress itself. So that's where you set that. All right. Your next one is dampen, and dampen basically, it affects the pull and the push together. So if you find maybe these are a bit too heavy, you can sit and play around with dampen. It will dampen your pull and your push. Then the next one is plasticity, and that basically is how much your object actually deforms. The higher this value is, the more it's going to deform a lot easier. Jelly will deform like crazy. Piece of paper, it's not going to deform that much. You'll see I've only got it at 10. All right, and if you have low numbers, it's not going to deform as much. Why did I choose deform? Let me just show you what this thing does. All right, if I crank it up to 50, the minute I press play and the physics kicks in, okay, again, I've got it under the cache. I'm actually going to delete the cache because it's becoming really difficult to really show. So here we go. You can actually see how, right, let's push this up to maybe like 60. You can actually see how the papers are crampling it up. It's almost like it's been hit or something, or there's like a force or something. Okay, take it back to 10. And you can see the papers are more outward. All right, plasticity. Right, the next one is so bending, and what bending does is this affects how stiff your object can be. It can also affect how much in terms of your cuts and that. So if I take now, you can see how the paper, and especially this is what works well with your turbulence, you can see how the paper has actually bent and stuff like that. Let me take bending down to 0, and you can see the paper's a lot more sort of straighter, sort of more blocky type of thing. This just allows that. Right, then when it comes to length, now what length basically does is, let me just show you. So it's on 75. If I take it down to 0, you can see how the paper stays very, very straight. There you go. That looks more like paper. That was maybe a ream of paper. If you don't know what a ream of paper is, all right, that's how paper comes. All right, let me take this up to 100%. Sure, it's not doing the things anymore. Okay. There you go. See, 75 was a lot more, was perfect. I think 100 was like too much. All right, very cool. Aerodynamics, I didn't play around with this, but this apparently what it does is that if you have a falling object, all right, this is now where you take into factor your aerodynamics. Okay, stiffness, never really played around with that. Self-collusion, as you know, with the papers, especially this plastic bag over here, you need to tick that to get them sort of playing well together. You want to play around with ball size and stiffness, especially if you find your objects still going through each other. Okay. And then something else that we spoke about was friction and mass. Now, let's talk about, I've got this really cool, look at this bag. You can see how I've gotten worked on the push and pull of this bag, and especially with my mass and my frictionless object, how well it works. All right, so I've taught you how to keyframe these guys, how to adjust your soft body, play around, guys. It took me quite a while of stuffing around and playing around and trying things to and forward, but start with your friction and mass. Get obviously your wind right, because sometimes like your mass could be right, but your wind could be too heavy, and so you could be saying, but it's blowing so quickly, let me put more friction to it. So just keep that in mind while you're doing that. And like I said, so once you've got your actual animation right, okay, all you need to then do is open up your Cache tab over here. Select your keyframes that you want to cache. It goes pretty quick. I didn't have to sit for long. I was going to originally do a liquid tutorial, and let me tell you, I couldn't, because every time I cached, my machine got eaten up alive. All right, so here we go. To bake. Look at that. Look how quickly that's going. You can keep an eye on it over here. And once it's done, now note you have to do per an object. So I did for the newspapers, and then I did one for the bag as well. Okay, here we go. There you go. And it's done. All right. And then of course, if you want to, you can go into this rendered view, and there's all your newspapers around with your and you can see my machine's coping. If you look at my activity monitor over here, my machine is actually coping. You can see over here. In fact, let me show you. The other thing that also gets me is that you gotta watch your frames per second over here, because you might say, but it's the force is not working well enough. It's just doesn't look like an explosion. All right. If you think you're happy with it, render it out so that you can get the true frames per second. and there is my render out. As you can see, I got my, I mean, that almost looks like a trash can, and something just gives it a blow and then it falls down afterwards. Anyway, that was my simple and good and quick to just playing around with the soft body physics. So guys, don't forget to subscribe to Active TV, because then every time I release a new tutorial, you'll definitely know about it. The other thing is that go check out our playlist, because we've got tons of other shows. Maybe my Blender tutorial is not your thing. Well, go check out. We've got Situation Room, which releases every day. It's like basically it's really, really awesome, really juicy. Obviously at the moment we're in a pandemic, we're in a situation, that's why we call it Situation Room. And if you want to get the lowdown on what's happening and what the news says, because you can't trust the media, guys, sorry to say that. Sue me, hate me, love me, whatever, but the Situation Room gives what's happening in the news from a Christian perspective. We've got a sitcom, a comedy sitcom at the moment, that's, well, sort of like, not really a sitcom, it's more like a real life, but it's funny, it's hilarious, it's a rip-off of another program. It's called Keeping Up with the Relatives, and we've got other tutorials, guitar tutorials, we've got piano tutorials, we've got synth tutorials, we've got other shows that happen in art program. Got too much. Okay, so hit that subscribe button and hit the bell button next to it, because then whenever we release a new show, you'll know about it. Alright, so with that said and done, from Ryan, I hope this was extremely helpful for you. If it was, hit that like button, alright? And we'll check you guys later. Have an awesome week, and like I said, play around with the soft body physics. Go check out my other tutorials. I do UV texturing, I do modeling, did I do animation? I don't think I did animation. I've done all sorts of tutorials, so go check that out. And so peace out, cheers guys. And just like that, I leave, and I leave behind the newspapers scattered to the ground.